rule 2 is an extension of that. You know, it's treat yourself as if you're someone responsible for helping. And you hear from psychologists frequently that, you know, people are kind of narcissistic and they tend to overestimate their skills in relationship to other people and so forth. And I don't really buy any of that. I don't think it's true. I think most of that's a measurement artifact. I think instead that people, my sense of people, from my clinical perspective and from my research perspective, is actually generally the opposite of that. If you sit down and you have a serious conversation with someone, it doesn't take very long if you have this serious conversation, unless they're narcissistic in a really pathological manner, and most people aren't like that. They're so damn painfully aware of what's wrong with them that it's hard to even face. You know, you don't have to talk to someone for very long until they tell you what they've done wrong or how they're inadequate. It's not some whiny game, although sometimes it's that. It's genuine recognition of their shortcomings and faults. You know, and the problem with being an individual person is that, well, you kind of are aware of the fragility of human beings in general, and then not only their fragility, but also their tendency towards malevolence, because it isn't only that we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable and we're capable of doing terrible things, not to ourselves, but also to other people. And not only are we capable of doing that, we've all done it, and we know it. And so you've got that to carry around, you know, the fact that you aren't everything you could be, and that's for sure. And the fact that, you know, you've done some things that really aren't that pride-worthy, let's say. And you bloody well know it, even if you're trying to fight it, if you're trying to avoid it. You might even be more painfully aware of it than you should be, you know, because sometimes I've also seen with people is they're much more willing to forgive other people than they are willing to forgive themselves. So you think, well, so this chapter is, well, treat yourself like you're someone responsible for helping. You think, well, that's self-evident. Like, it's not so self-evident. I open the chapter with this observation that if you have a pet, if you go to a doctor and you get a prescription medication, well, there's 1/3 chance that you won't fill it, and if you do fill it, there's a 50% chance you won't take the medication. And so you think, well, maybe there's a bunch of reasons for that. You don't trust the doctor, you're lazy, you don't understand what's going on, who knows. But here's the weird thing. That's not true if you take your pet to the vet. If you take your pet to the vet, well, then you'll go fill the prescription and you'll give the damn pet the medication. It's like, okay, what's going on there? Do you like your dog more than you like you? It's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, maybe even a lot, you know? And there's some reason for that, because, you know, if you have a dog or a cat, let's say a dog in this case, like, the dog is an innocent creature. It's a carnivore, but it's an innocent creature. And, like, it doesn't have sins on its conscience. You don't expect the dog to be everything it could be. It's a dog, and that's what it's busy doing, right? And, you know, it's pretty happy when it sees you, and it's a pretty fair exchange of affect. There's no reason to distrust the dog. I mean, it might do foolish dog things, you know, like chew a toy when it's not supposed to, but that's about as far as sin goes for a dog. And so they're easy to like, and you're not so easy to like, that's for sure. You know, and, yeah, that's, you can tell that, because your family members, they're happier to see the dog than they are to see you. Yeah. So, you know, you got this tough problem, which is, well, you got to put up with yourself, and it's even worse than that because you know who you are. It's like, oh my God, who's going to take care of that? No one. It's like, we'll just let it wander off into a corner somewhere and die. That'd be good. But you know, it's not a good thing. One of the things I learned from Carl Jung, he talked about this Christian injunction. It's from a psychological perspective, which is to treat other people like you would like to be treated. And you know, people often think of that as this injunction to be nice to other people. It's like, that is not what that means. First of all, nice is a very low-end virtue, man. Nice is harmless as far as I'm concerned. That's not a virtue. It's the absence of a particular fault at best. So to treat others like you'd like to be treated yourself is an equation. So let's say I'm enjoined in some sense to treat you properly, but I'm also enjoined to treat myself properly. And so then I have to think that through. It's like, well, let's say you have a child, you have a son, and you want to treat him properly. It's like, well, you don't just let him get away with everything. That's not helpful. You want to sit and think about what sort of person you would like this child to become. You want to encourage that, right? You want to act as if you're charged with the care of something valuable and precious. And then you do what you can, if you have any sense, to help that person become everything they can become. It's like, well, you have the same responsibility to yourself. Even as, even though you might not think you deserve it, it doesn't have anything to do with deserving it in some sense. It's a moral requirement to view yourself, despite your inadequacies and your faults, as if you're someone who needs to be properly taken care of, and it's a responsibility on your part to figure out what that is. And this actually works, We have this program we designed called self-authoring, and I designed it with two of my colleagues, Daniel Higgins and Robert Peel. One was a graduate student of mine, that's Daniel Higgins, and the other was my graduate supervisor at McGill. And we worked on that for about 20 years, figuring out how to make it accessible to individuals on the web. We wanted to bring psychological interventions to people that were low cost and effective. And we have this, part of this program is the Future Authoring Program. And it's two parts. It's a writing program. Because writing, by the way, if you want to straighten out your brain, there's almost nothing you can do that's better than writing. Writing really straightens you out. Yeah, well, because you're organized at the highest level of your personality. You're organized verbally. And so you have to have an account of yourself. You have to have an articulated account of yourself. That's why you talk to people all the time about what's going on in your life. It's so that you can have an articulated account of yourself. And if you're disorganized at the level of the articulated account, then you're disorganized. You might think, well, who cares? It's like, no, you don't understand. If you're disorganized, you fall into a pit. Like, it's a bad thing. It's like you have a map, but there's stains everywhere, and there's big holes torn in it, and it's half drawn in crayon, and like, you're not getting anywhere good with a map like that. And so you have to be able to articulate yourself. And writing is a very good way of doing that. And in the self-authoring program, you can write about your past, and you can write about your personality, and then you can write about your future. Now, one of the things I've learned from dealing with students forever is that in our education system, this is so weird. I've really struggled with this realization. I had it about 15 years ago. We never sit, I have these students who've been in formal education for 16 years, right? And no one has ever sat them down, even once, and said, okay, look, you got 3 hours. Write about who the hell you should be. And I don't mean you're going to be a plumber or a lawyer or whatever. Fair enough, That isn't what I mean. It's like, what kind of character do you want to manifest in the world? In detail. And then why? You think, well, why don't we teach people to do this? It's like, it's the only question. It's the only relevant question. It's like, well, if you could be who you could be, let's imagine you had that within the palm of your hands, that it would be possible for you to be who you could be. Let's say that's within your realm of competence. Who would that be? And if the answer is, well, I don't know, and that's the answer, then give it up, man. Because you're not going to move forward with a plan like that. And this is a psychological truth. We know already that human perception is organized around aim. Everything about us is organized around aim. Even the way we use our eyes is organized around aim. We're aiming creatures. And how do you not hit something if there's a target there? How do you miss it? Well, one is to not specify the target. So how the hell are you going to hit something if you don't specify it? So it's like, and I know that for most people, life is something that happens to them. They're reacting to things all the time, which means that they're tangled up in someone else's story, or they're pawns in someone else's aims, or they're pawns of the aims of their own unconscious processes, that too. And then that's the case when you find yourself doing something that you can't believe you did, right? I can't believe I did that. It's like, yeah, well, there's something in you that had you. It wasn't you, or it was a dark part of you. But there's nothing to replace that. There's no superordinate aim. And so in the future authoring program, we get people to, well, just to think about their lives. It's like, so there's this another injunction in the New Testament. It's a very strange one. It says, knock and the door will open, ask and you will receive. You think, yeah, right. Fat chance, right? Who's going to believe that, right? It's just it's way too, looks too naively optimistic to even possibly be true. But it's a strange thing, and I've seen this over and over in my clinical and my consulting practice and with my students. I'll tell you, man, if you don't aim at something, you will not hit it. And if you do aim at it, the probability that you'll at least advance in that direction starts to, you will. That's what will happen. Now, you aim at something, what the hell do you know, right? You set up your aim, you don't know anything. It's like you're stupid in your aims just like you are in everything else. But at least you're aiming at something, you move towards it, and as you move towards it, you learn something because you're actually doing something. You might learn precisely how stupid you were in your aims, but you learn it precisely. And that's so useful because once you learn something precisely like that, then you can incorporate the knowledge and you can reformulate your aim, and the next aim is not quite so boneheaded. And so what you do is imagine you should be aiming here, but you don't know because you're blind, and maybe that's even moving. And so you're so blind you aim over here. Well, you walk a little ways and you think, no, wrong. Then you aim over here and you walk a little ways and you think, no, wrong. And you keep doing that, and like it's a winding path. Like it's not the shortest point, not the shortest distance between point A and B, but you're moving forward. And so even if you're doing it badly, you're approximating the ideal, and the more you do that, the better you get at it. And that actually works. And so we ask people, you think, well, what's life? What's your life made out of? Well, it's pretty straightforward, You need some relationships, right? You gotta have some friends, that'd be good. Maybe some of you don't want friends. Okay, you're a peculiar sort and you don't need friends. But there are some people who aren't that social, but broadly speaking, a couple of friends is a good thing. Okay, how many? And who? Who should you have for friends? Well, you might think, well, people who are kind of on your side, that'd be good. Or maybe people who at least aren't actively conspiring against you. And you think, well, my friends don't actively conspire against me. It's like, yeah, well, you just think about it for a while and see if that's true. So, same with your family members. So, and you as well, right? Because you're actively conspiring against yourself as well. So, what if you could have the friends you wanted and you were doing the things you wanted with them, what would that look like? All right, well, what about your career or job? Like, what's that going to look like? How are you going to make sure you're as educated as you are intelligent? Something like that. How are you going to take care of yourself mentally and physically? If you could do it whatever way you wanted. How are you going to handle temptations? Drug and alcohol abuse, for example. How are you going to regulate that? What are you going to do with your time outside of work that's productive and meaningful? Well, that's not a bad start. It's 6 dimensions, It's like, okay, you can have what you want, or you can have what you need if you were taking care of yourself. But you have to specify it. Okay, so we tested that. We made this program. We tested it in Holland first. We tested it in 3 universities. And under pretty rocky conditions in one college, we just had kids come in for their summer orientation and just spend like an hour writing. So you hardly even start, with your plan. But it's a plan, and that means you're the planner. That's a good thing to learn. You're not just this thing that's being pushed back and forth by by evil fate. You've got the grip on things, and you're at least contending. It's like, well, people were 25% more likely to stay in university, and the effect lasted more than 2 years. So that was amazing, and the grades went up as well, about the same amount. And the people that it helped the most, which was really weird, because usually if you do a psychological intervention, you say there are people not doing so well, there's people who are doing pretty well. You do an intervention, the people who are doing well do even better, and the people who aren't doing so well, they just stay where they are. But that isn't what happened with this intervention, is the people that weren't doing very well did way better. It was like, well, they never had a plan. So they make a half-hearted plan, it's like, they're way better. Well, so that's something to think about. You don't want to take care of yourself because you should, or because you're compassionate, or because it's or because you're compassionate, let's say. You want to take care of yourself because, well, this is at the center of things as far as I'm concerned. And this is something I truly believe, despite my black heart and essential pessimism, is that, every human being is a spectacular miracle. That's really the case. And of the secret. That's part of the secret of the West, is our legal system is predicated on that idea. It's predicated on the idea that you're made in the image of God, let's say, and that even the law has to stay a distance from you because you're just that remarkable. And I believe that that's as close, that's literally true and metaphorically true at the same time. And I think that everyone knows this, because if you don't treat yourself like that, you don't do very well. And if you have friends or family members and you don't treat them like that's true, they don't like you very much. And if you organize a society on axiomatic principles that don't include that idea, then those societies become unproductive and murderous almost instantly. And so to me, that indicates there's something true about that, let's call it metaphysical claim. And if it's true, well, then you have an obligation to take care of yourself. And it's not just for you. That's the thing. It's not selfish exactly, although it is, because you should take care of yourself. But if you don't take care of yourself, then like, what the hell good are you to your family? You know, and what good are you to your community? And it's like, you might be really useful to your family. You never know, you know, you might be the thing that stands in between them and some catastrophe. And for all you know, you might be that thing that stands in between your society and that catastrophe. And I actually think that that's the case. You know, I read the great commentators on the 20th century catastrophes, right and left wing alike. And the really profound ones all say the same thing. Societies degenerate into hell when individuals abdicate their moral responsibility. It's like there's a direct connection between you stepping up to the plate, say, in relationship to yourself, and the stability of the world. And I actually think it goes beyond that. I truly believe this. I think we don't construe who we are properly. We don't articulate it properly, even though we act it out. I think that what you confront in life is something like an infinite landscape of potential. That's the future. You don't live in the present. The present's already here. And the past, it's too late. But the future, it's right in front of you. And you're interacting with that potential future. It could go this way or it could go that way. And you can see those potentials manifest themselves in front of you. And you make these decisions about which part of that you're going to make into concrete reality. And so I don't think that it isn't just your stability that your decisions depend on. It's not just your family's stability and flourishing. It's not just society. Those are all important things and they all stack up. I think that you play a role in directing the structure of reality itself. And I think you bloody well know that. And we call each other on it all the time. Say, you're not living up to your possibility. You're not living up to your potential. It's like, what the hell does that mean? Everyone says it. Everyone's embarrassed because they know it's true. You're not living up to your potential. I know, God, you know. I know. Don't bother me about it. It's like, you're ashamed of that. Well, why would you be ashamed of it? You are. Well, why? Well, because it actually matters. Like, it really matters. Unless you think that it's okay for things to degenerate. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's rule 2. It's like, and that's worth, and like, look, I came to this realization. It wasn't an easy realization to come to because it just doesn't seem that self-evident. But I'm telling you, people like Viktor Frankl and Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Václav Havel, people who really grappled with the horrors of the 20th century, trying to understand how a society like East Germany could emerge where 1 in 3 people was a government informer. Imagine that. You get 6 people in your family and 2 of them are informing on you to the government. How does that happen? Well, it happens because the individuals in the society abdicated their moral responsibility. That's how it happens. You might think, well, a lot of people have to do that. It's like, yeah, we don't know how many people have to do that before things tilt seriously sideways. And it might not have to be that many. And it does matter. You know, I see people. This is actually why I decided to do what I did with regards to my stance on compelled speech in Canada. You know, people have been patting me